All right, perfect. Well, hi, everybody. Today's session is called Data Protection as a Service for AWS. I'm Andy Fernandez, the Director of Product Marketing here at HYCU. We've got 15 minutes. So I want to make sure that I cover all the topics that we're going to talk to today, go into the details about our AWS solution and service, but also give you a free service that we are giving away at the end of this session as well. So with that being said, I want to focus on something that is a crucial aspect of the industry, and that is the concept that the myth that I do not have to back up anything within AWS. If I'm trusting AWS with the hardware, I'm using them for storage and compute, then I don't need to worry as an end user about backup. But the reality is, and it's something that we've all figured out throughout the years, which is it is a documented shared responsibility model where you are responsible for protecting your data, for managing your data, and for securing your data. AWS will take care of the hardware. Now, a lot of folks assume that there were no issues within public cloud infrastructure. But the reality is it's somebody else's hardware. So all of the issues that we've always experienced on premise still apply within the public cloud. Somebody could simply delete something. You could have certain issues with logical failures, even hardware outages, or you can have something more sinister with bad actors and ransomware attacks. And then ultimately, there's also compliance requirements from a backup perspective. But the reality here is that not only do you need to be able to perform backup and protect and are responsible for your data within AWS or any other public cloud, but there are very specific scenarios that can introduce downtime and data loss to your organization. So it's very obvious, right, that this myth has been busted. But now that everyone understands that we do need to protect this data that lives anywhere, especially within AWS, there are very important challenges that come with that. If you think about it, many of you have had to manage on-premises environments. And within that, you had virtualized applications, physical tape that you were using to be able to protect the applications that were running on-prem. You had backup infrastructure, you even had DR infrastructure, maybe even a secondary site. That was already one area that could be pretty complex. You're dealing with traditional data protection solutions there. But then came along the adoption of the public cloud. Not only people thinking, well, I actually want to use AWS for offsite storage. I want to be able to perform failovers to AWS, but they're now actual instances and applications that are running within AWS. But you can't use this legacy solution that you're using on-prem. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you bring in agents and plugins to be able to work with if you're trying to use a SaaS service, if you're trying to use infrastructure as a service? So what do? You use things like AWS Backup, which is really a combination of creating DIY on your own snapshots, and then using scripts and CLI to be able to manage everything, every single function you need to perform an activity in order to perform backup. So that's already another separate infrastructure and separate backup activity that you're doing. And many folks in this on this call are not just responsible for protecting AWS. You also have GCP, you have Azure, you have other SaaS services that you have to protect as well. So what this means is that for the standard hybrid or multi-cloud environment, you're dealing with a lot of cost, a lot of time, a lot of resource and activity just to keep the lights on, right? No one is creating revenue using backup. You are simply making sure that you are available and that your data is accessible at all points in time. So kind of understanding this pain point here is where I'm going to transition over to how we at HYCU and using the HYCU Protege platform are able to solve for this problem. I'm going to start at a quick high level and then dive really into how we deliver this for AWS. But as we mentioned before, you've got applications running on-prem. You've got them running in different public clouds. And it's very difficult to, at one point in time, understand what is going on with my environment. How are my applications being protected? How much resources are they consuming? Am I okay if something were happening today? With HYCU Protege, you're able to have complete visualization in one unified experience of all of your applications, regardless of the infrastructure that they're on. Doesn't matter if it's VMware, Nutanix, AWS, it doesn't matter. You're able to visualize everything within one place. That already alone is a value add. And then ultimately, you need to be able to manage them very quickly in a very easy way. All of these infrastructures in the past, right? You had your vSphere backup, maybe even Hyper-V, you had a backup for AWS, something else. They all come with very niche idiosyncrasy where you have to manage each of these individually. What HYCU Protege is able to solve for as well is giving you the ability to know that regardless of where these applications are, you are managing them with easy to use, easy to customize data protection policies that are designed to set and forget. And ultimately, the most important piece here is that you know that your data is safe, that it is immutable, regardless of where it is. Now, from a use case perspective, what does this actually mean? Especially when we talk about the context of AWS, what does HYCU Protege do for you? Well, first and foremost, you're able to protect your on-premises infrastructure, right? Whether it's you protecting your VMware, your Nutanix, Dell PowerScale, and you're able to use AWS for public cloud storage. You're also able to use AWS and simply fail over to and from AWS. Think about what your organizations were doing 10 years ago, where you had a secondary site that you were either replicating or copying to. There's a lot of ownership, a lot of cost, a lot of CapEx focus on this. With HYCU, you're able to simply leverage AWS as a DR target site. You're also able to migrate and move not only to AWS, but cross cloud as well, and ultimately make sure that you have an ability to manage all of your workloads, regardless of whether they are exclusively AWS or additional public cloud workloads as well. Now, with that being said, let's actually get into the specifics as to how this service actually works. First and foremost, this is data protection as a service. This is purpose-built for AWS using native AWS APIs. There are no agents, there are no plugins. This is not a hardware appliance. This is a true SaaS. Because it is a true SaaS, it is completely integrated into AWS Marketplace and the billing as well. So you're able to consume this very easily. There is zero installation and zero upgrade requirements. This is all fully managed, fully automated, so you do not have to go and have to configure and manage a backup or DR solution yourself. This is a service that you simply subscribe to. One distinction that I want to make as well, though, is although this is a fully managed service, we do not store your data. There are so many compliance and security issues that come with trusting somebody else's storage and their accounts. So we remove that issue alone, and we allow and enable you to use your AWS accounts, your storage, and your resources, and that even includes your identity access permissions, right? So not only are we as a service model, but we are also leveraging AWS capabilities. EBS snapshots, you're automatically inheriting identity access management and resource groups, and you're able to use your AWS storage as well. This is making sure that you maximize your use of AWS from a cost-efficient perspective, but that you're still able to protect it. But what's the secret sauce here? A lot of people are able to deliver some form of protection service. What makes HYCU Protege special? Well, really, it's about simplicity. It's knowing that regardless if you need to protect your data, the traditional backup, whether that's in AWS or to AWS, or you need to perform cross-regional recoveries, or even lift and shift to AWS, that you're using one single interface, one license to perform all three of these. Historically, these are three different vendors that you had to use to effectively protect, move, and recover your data. With HYCU, it's one single service, not just for AWS, for beyond. But it's designed for zero learning curve as well. If you think about it, you have experts on-prem. You have folks who have been delivering backup and data protection, DR, their entire lives. They understand that the in and outs. But now with public cloud, with AWS, you have all these folks, different types of people within DevOps organizations, Azure or AWS architects who are provisioning their own workloads. They need to be able to have something that is simple to use, that has zero learning curve, and also have self-service capabilities. And that is what HYCU Protege for AWS can deliver. But what are the differences here, right? What additional things make it different? Well, as we mentioned, first and foremost, this is true data protection as a service. There's no planning, no sizing, no installation, maintenance, or upgrades. You are simply subscribing to this service and automatically within minutes being able to start protecting. One critical area here as well is regardless of what infrastructure choice you're making, you need to be able to air gap your backups, whether that is Google, AWS, Azure. You need to be able to make sure that that is immutable. For AWS, we leverage Object Lock. Because this is purpose-built, something that I can't emphasize enough is you do not want to use a solution that is agent-based. You do not want to use something here that enables you to have to have all the production impacts of an agent as well. And as we mentioned, this is an AWS native solution. We are using what AWS delivers from a snapshot perspective, but also from a resources and permissions perspective. And ultimately, you also want to be able to leverage the cloud scale and one-click cloning and DR. Everything that we deliver as well, whether you're a backup administrator on-prem or an architect within AWS, you need to be able to perform things with one-click simplicity, whether it's a failover to the public cloud, whether it's a file restore of an EC2 instance, or even a lift and shift capability. These things need to be easy and they need to be available for your organization to perform. But with that being said, most organizations are using things beyond AWS. You have an on-prem environment, you're using multiple public clouds and SaaS services. At the end of the day, what HYCU Protege delivers that's a true differentiator is being able to manage, view, protect, and perform all of your backup and DR activities from one single place. And that includes everything from Nutanix, VMware, Google Cloud, Azure, especially AWS, and even Microsoft 365. And what it means is every single option that you're seeing here is purpose-built for that platform that you're using to protect. There are no agents, there are no plugins. We have spent the time and engineering resource to build as they should be for all of these. You have three core use cases that you can deliver here. It's backup, DR, and mobility. And ultimately, we do not care. And we are completely storage cloud agnostic. It's whatever good decision, whatever business rationale you have for a certain public cloud, we will be able to support that, especially when we're talking about folks who are looking into using AWS. But with that being said, I want to take a little bit of time to provide some insight into a free offer that you have. Something I mentioned at the beginning is you have more folks than ever who are now responsible for protecting EC2 instances. This is a challenge because a lot of folks have not done backups before. And you have an ability to do this with AWS backup, but it requires scripts. It can be very complex. And ultimately, if you're a developer, SRE, an architect, you don't want to spend most of your time performing backup activities. You want to automate that as much as possible. So something that I wanted to announce that we've delivered here is a free tier of our managed backup service for AWS EC2. What this means is that for free, without any capacity limits, you're able to perform basic snapshot management. You are going to utilize all the capabilities that we've already talked about today. You can perform cross-regional recovery, but most importantly, especially when it comes to AWS, you have complete visibility across all accounts with complete data sovereignty and privacy. Even if your organization leverages multiple AWS account IDs, you can manage them all from one place and have a true understanding of what's going on with my instances. Am I protected? What's my protection status? And one of the value adds that we offer here as well is this is meant to be for anyone. The way that we've designed this is I want my grandmother to be able to go in there and protect her environment if she needs to. People have day jobs, and in the cloud, backup is not a day job. And we want to make sure that we've automated that experience. So with this free service, not only can you automatically discover all of your EC2 instances, but you can assign prepackaged automated backup policies for them. You can customize your own if you'd like to as well. But you're able to do all of the backup activities that you want in an automated fashion without scripts. Something that we've added is very interesting as well is you can perform a file or folder restore. Simply selecting the instance and seeing a full file catalog, you're able to perform that restore as well. But ultimately, even having visibility, monitoring, notifications of anything that happens in your environment for free. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, address a lot of the questions. I'm going to leave this slide up here because I think it's crucial. One thing that I want to mention is there's no credit card requirements here. You can do this without billing rights. As long as you have your account ID and you have an instance that you want to protect, this is now yours to use for free for life without any strings attached. So I want to thank you all for your time and your attention today. We can transition over to some questions.